Africa is open for business. Cyril Ramaphosa addressed a meeting at the World Economic Forum on Africa. He says government will make investors more comfortable. Now, Michael Marilia telling us more about these details. Now, Michael, the President mentioning a survey by the World Bank. What is the survey? Why is it so important? What's in it?
Yeah, absolutely, Veka. He mentioned the Doing Business survey. This basically looks at how easy it is to actually do business in countries around the world. Just how much red tape do they have to work through before they can actually start making some money. The President also saying, Veka, that the buck stops here. Government's responsibility is to make sure investors are comfortable and that it's easy to do business. So with that in mind, let's focus on the latest Doing Business Index. This one was conducted in 2018. The figures coming out a little bit earlier this year. And we've focused, Veka, on sub-Saharan Africa because these are really our rivals on the African continent when it comes to attracting investment. Mauritius getting a score of 80 out of 100. South Africa, I'm afraid to say, trailing quite far behind. It finished fourth in sub-Saharan Africa with a score of 66. And as you can see, Botswana and Zambia not far behind, just 1 point behind South Africa. We are, of course, the second biggest economy on the continent behind Nigeria, but when it comes to making it easy to do business, it seems we have a lot to learn. I'm going to quickly go through some of the scores when it actually came to our ranking on the continent. Starting a business 25th in sub-Saharan Africa. Construction permits 13, getting power into your business or maybe your factory 9th in sub-Saharan Africa. Registering a property, we barely made it into the top 10, and getting credit, we've scraped into the top 10, we're ranked number 9. We are doing fairly well when it comes to certain other processes, but many of these actually come after you've started the business and you're on your feet. And that could be problematic as we are saying that we want to encourage entrepreneurship, but most of the difficult processes we're not really doing well when it comes to making them smoother. If you take a look at things like enforcing contracts, paying taxes, not bad at all compared to the rest of the continent, Uveka. This one will be concerning, though. We try to style ourselves here in South Africa as the gateway to the rest of the continent. But when it comes to processes and the paperwork involved with trading across borders, we're not doing particularly well. In fact, we're 24th in sub-Saharan Africa, Uveka.
Okay, well, you've looked at us and how we compare to the rest of Africa, but where have you sort of placed us with the rest of the world, I'm afraid to ask?
Well, there is a familiar picture when it comes to South Africa and the rest of the world, because the number one country in the world is, in fact, these guys, New Zealand. As we take a look at the All Blacks doing their haka against the Springboks, we're quite familiar with this, aren't we? So we decided to compare South Africa versus New Zealand when it comes to starting a business, and I hope you don't mind, Uveka, we've used a few pictures from the rugby world. The World Economic Forum telling us that in New Zealand, believe it or not, it takes just one process and half a day to register a business, to actually ensure that the authorities recognize that it is a firm and it is a legal entity. How long does it take in South Africa? Well, I'm afraid to say it takes 7 procedures and 40 days to register a firm and deal with all the accompanying paperwork. So we've got a long way to go, Uveka, if we want to win the World Cup of business.
Well, if you're lucky, it takes 40 days. It could take you half your life to actually get that business going here sometimes. And if you didn't, even then you'd give up before you got there. Well, I suppose we just have to come up with a great sort of war cry. And maybe that'll help us get it all out there.
We'll all be performing hakas before we start our day at the office.
Yeah.